on him!
Welcome to Fish North Georgia's The Guide. Here's Andy Middleton.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Andy Middleton with Fish North Georgia, coming to you with a fishing report for Lake Guntersville from March 28th. That was a Saturday. I fished a kayak tournament out there, and just want to kind of give you the rundown of how I planned for the tournament and what I found and how I broke down the bite that day. So, I have not fished Guntersville in about 2 years, and when I did fish Guntersville the last few times I've been up there, it's been on the north end, up even into the Tennessee section, way up the Tennessee River, or in and around Stevenson, Alabama. So everything's been pretty much north of the Comer Bridge from my experience there. So to change it up this time, I wanted to learn a little bit different section of the lake, and I did some map research and looked for a good diverse set of structure and cover, and decided I would go to Honeycomb Creek to fish this tournament. So drove there Saturday morning, launched in Honeycomb Creek sight unseen. My plan was to launch at the bridge, 431 bridge, over the creek, but there was a bass boat tournament going out of that ramp, so I called an audible and launched out of the front of the creek, out more toward the mouth. So had to change up my plans a little bit of how I was going to attack the creek. The grass is mostly in the back of that creek, way past the bridge, so I didn't get to fish as much grass as I wanted to. So my plan going in, I thought, was going to be doing a lot of flipping and throwing probably a chatterbait, just something to rip through the grass. But I didn't really get to do that as much as I wanted to, because there's not much grass out in the section that I launched in. So I changed up my plan a little bit. I started out throwing a spinnerbait, didn't get a bite on that, and I was getting hung up in a lot of the eelgrass that was blowing in from the main river. With the way the wind was blowing that day, there was just a ton of it, and it was blown up against every bank. So made it a little bit tough, especially on the north side of the creek. The north bank has more flats, and I thought that's where the fish would want to go to spawn, so that's where I started out, and switched to a wacky rig Cinco from the spinnerbait. I didn't get any bites in the first 20-30 minutes or so on the moving bait, so being pre-spawn, possibly a spawn bite, I picked up the Cinco and just started throwing it, working the banks fairly slowly with it. I worked some riprap first and a couple of culverts with no luck, and then I moved out to a little secondary point and ended up catching my first fish on that secondary point. It was a good fish. It was about 3.5 pounds, 17 inches, pre-spawn female, right off that. It was a small point. It wasn't one of those long tapering points. It was just basically a rock outcropping, more so than a point. But anyway, using that knowledge, I worked down the bank and threw the Cinco some more on the north side. I thought I'd found a really good area, but I didn't get any bites in there, or any more bites in there, and plus I had to deal with some boat traffic. So I decided to move to the south bank. That was a steeper bank, and there's a big row of docks on it. So I picked out a few of the docks that jutted out a little bit further than the rest and had some good deep water adjacent to them. And it was still early in the morning when I got over there, and I found the fish to be more so cruising in between the docks than relating to the dock posts and stuff in the shade, because there wasn't really any shade yet because the sun wasn't up high enough. So I kept the Cinco in my hand and ended up getting a limit fairly early, and just using those docks and the areas between them, I caught fish fairly consistently throughout the day. It wasn't a barn burner by any means. I didn't catch 30, 40, 50 fish, but I did catch probably a dozen or so. Ended up finishing 20th out of 70 anglers in the tournament. My main problem was I could not get that kicker bite. Maybe one reason was because I did have to go finesse. I had checked the Salooner tables the night before, and it said it was supposed to be a poor fishing day. So I kind of had it in the back of my mind that I might have to switch pretty early to finesse tactics. So that's what I ended up sticking with throughout the day. I would try to keep them honest by throwing a buzz bait or a chatterbait or picking up the spinnerbait again, just to see if I could get one of those bigger bites and get that kicker fish. But it didn't work out for me, and I couldn't throw anything with treble hooks because I mentioned earlier the eelgrass had blown into the creek so bad that treble hooks were just not an option that day. So I couldn't go run to the riprap and try to do what Hank Cherry did in the Classic, throwing a jerk bait or the little flat side or anything like that. It just was not an option. So stuck with the finesse tactics. Like I said, had the wacky rig Cinco, and once the sun got up, I did switch to a 1/4 ounce shaky head. Fished that actually on casting gear on a St. Croix 610, or it's actually a custom built rod on a St. Croix blank, the 610 medium action extra fast tip Legend tournament blank. But just a dark colored trick worm on the shaky head, and found one certain dock that was close to a channel swing bank, and I sat on it for probably 2 hours and caught a bunch of fish off of it. If I ever hit a lull with the trick worm, I would take it off my shaky head and put a 3.8 inch kayak on my shaky head and generate a couple of more bites that way. And just worked those docks and the areas in between them on that south bank, kept it going throughout the day. Just seemed like every fish I caught was one of those cookie cutter 1.5 2 pound fish. They're 14.5 to 15 inches, and couldn't find any of those nice 5-pounders. But it was a good day. I enjoyed the day, had a good time, and like I said, I don't really want to call it a fishing report because I can't cover a whole lot of water in a kayak, and I didn't plan to cover a whole lot of water. So it's more of a trip report than a full fishing report for the entire lake, because I just got to see that one little section in Honeycomb Creek. Boat traffic was really bad in there. It was more so pleasure boat traffic than it was bass boat traffic. The boats from that tournament mostly left out of that creek and went elsewhere, so I didn't have to deal with a ton of bass boats. There were quite a few fishermen, but there were a lot of jet skis and a lot of pleasure boaters, even with the social distancing restrictions due to the coronavirus. A lot of people were not heeding those very well. So hopefully this thing doesn't last that much longer. My next trip report will probably be coming from somewhere in Georgia instead of Alabama or some other state next time, because I don't think I have any tournaments planned until the end of May. I will be fishing on Chickamauga, hopefully then, as long as there are no restrictions on tournaments by that time. So tune in next time for those reports. Trying to think if I forgot anything. I will tell you guys the water temperature that I found in Honeycomb. It was about 63 or 64 that morning when I launched and at first light, and by the middle of the day it was up to about 66 or 67 degrees. It was about 80 degrees that day, and it got sunny in the afternoon, so that's when the fish started relating more to the docks than the areas in between. So was catching fish in 2 to 4 feet of water early, and then I would still catch them shallow during midday, but they tended to move more out to that 5 to 6 feet range. Like if you got to the end of the gangway going out to the dock and just casted on one of the back posts of the dock, that was usually a pretty good area to get a strike. Did have a couple of fish caught in like 10 to 14 foot of water out on the ends of the docks, but that was not a primary deal. It was more of a shallow deal. So that's it for this report. I want to thank Dugout Bait and Tackle in Marietta, Georgia. On top of being a really awesome tackle shop, they're also the Hobie dealership for Metro Atlanta, Hobie Kayaks. I want to thank them. I want to thank St. Croix Rods, Nichols Lures, Spro, Gamakatsu, and Jasper Jeep as always. So tune in for my next report. Get out there and enjoy your social distancing on the water, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks for watching the guide here at Fish North Georgia. Our mission is to build a community of anglers to give you the best and latest information to make your day on the water more successful. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, click the bell so you'll be notified of any future content. Make sure you check us out at fishnorthgeorgia.com, where we carry a large variety of bait manufacturers from here in the North Georgia area. So we appreciate you being part of our community, and we'll see you soon.